make a lot of sense. Things got crazy. Things got crazy.
That's what I was just saying. Oh, is that what you were just saying?
Yeah.
Are they gonna reveal on your plan? So we don't see it before?
Oh. That's where the
Hello. With it being 6:30, I would like to call this work session to order with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Who will be starting this out this evening?
Mrs. Lang, I'd like to thank everybody for being here tonight and welcome our presenters. Tonight from SM Wilson, we have Jack Kinnamore and Amy Berg, as well as Matt Frank and Krista Newberg. They will be presenting information about the guaranteed maximum price for Francis Howell North. This is a culmination of a somewhat long journey. Seems like it is maybe a little bit longer than it actually has been, but we began our partnership with SM Wilson a number of months ago, and we've been working very steadily since that time to get to the point where we could be talking about what the final price would be for Francis Howell North High School. And so, Jeremy, I'm going to let you make any other introductions, and then we can have SM Wilson begin their presentation.
Nope, nothing to say. Turn it over to Jack.
Okay.
Or me.
Or Amy, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Amy Berg, and I'm the president of SM Wilson and Company. I have been the president since 2012 and been with the company for 26 years. And I will tell you that in my 30, I won't say how many years I've been doing this, but 30 plus years, I have never seen or been involved in anything like what we're all going through right now. And it's not just Francis Howell, it's not just St. Louis, and it's not the Midwest. It's all over the country, unprecedented right now between the pandemic and what it snowballed into what's happening with pricing and what's happening with material deliveries. It's happening all over the country. And so I think that to Kevin's point, and this team has been working actually for almost a year, I think, Kevin, and working well together with not only the district, but with your architectural team, Honer Associates. And I think they've had strategies to try to overcome what's happening in the marketplace. And we'll talk, and Jack and Matt will talk more specifically about that and what we as a team are doing, again, with the district, with Jeremy, and with the architects. And I'll say that the team's been working really well together. I think the accomplishments, while we're going to talk about, the price that is not where certainly any of us wanted it to be, they've really mitigated a lot of the risk for the district, and they'll talk about that. Hopefully you've seen or been to the site recently, and quite a bit of work has already been put in place. And in fact, had we waited to bid that work in December, which was originally the original plan, we would be in much worse shape. So they've done a great job mitigating a lot of the costs for the early bid packages, including the steel, all the site work, and the footings and foundations. So again, we appreciate being here today and having an opportunity to talk to you about the process and where we've been and where we're headed. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jack.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you to the board and the cabinet. We're very excited to present, as Kevin indicated, our final GMP for bid package number 5. I'd like to start where we started our partnership with the district, and that was with the CM at risk delivery method. Some of the goals or advantages of the CM at risk delivery method were ability to fast track the overall schedule, get our construction collaboration at the onset of design and throughout the design, as well as competitively bidding the bid packages and ultimately providing you guys a final GMP where us as your construction manager with that CM at risk delivery method actually hold the risk. As Amy alluded to, there's quite a bit of work that's taken place on site through the early GMPs of bid packages 1 through 4. Our earthwork and site utility work is complete. We're well underway on our concrete foundations and retaining walls. We have plumbers and electricians on site doing our underground roughing. And currently, we're scheduled for our first concrete slab pour in the next few weeks. And even more importantly, we have structural steel and precast concrete panels on our way in the next few months. With that being said, we'll switch to the next slide. So as Amy alluded to and talked earlier, and I'm sure as many of you guys have seen in your daily lives, is you're seeing the prices of really escalating throughout everything. It's whether it's at the grocery store, the gas pump, it's the fear of getting your holiday gifts shipped on time. The market conditions are all around us, and they're more impactful even on the construction industry. I won't get into a lot of these details, but as you can see in the slide, the construction industry has been hit pretty hard over the last 12 months. Things that we're doing to try to mitigate those issues, we're closely following the local and the national publications from the industry publications. These things are coming out on a weekly basis. They're talking about what numbers, they're talking about manpower, cost escalation, they're giving trends and projections. We're also working very closely with our local and regional subcontractors and suppliers to really see what's impacting and what they're predicting for the future, as well as we're working on the national level with our peer contractors to see what's happening in those geographic areas with those projects. So all this wealth of information, really what it comes down to, we're trying to use that to help mitigate these issues that we're standing in front of today. With also, we're trying to use that information to help our clients make wise decisions, and then through the CM at risk process, we really worked through that through the summer and trying to work through what was the best way that we could split up design in order to bid out the stuff and get the work out in front of us. I'd like to switch to the next area in the graph. I'm going to explain this graph. There's a lot of information here. This graph represents cost data from the Engineering and News Record, or ENR for short. ENR is a national publication that tracks all things construction engineering. And they have a couple cost indexes that they've been tracking, specifically cost pricing since 1915. On this graph, you'll see, or let me back up a little bit, with the Engineering News Record, as what we've seen over the last few decades in a normal time frame, the construction industry faces about a 3% climb in inflation year over year. In this graph, particularly that starts in mid-2018 and runs through the current time frame, you can see with the that kind of gradual 3% increase from March and through to mid-2020. What started happening in mid-2020 through the COVID effects, the market conditions, especially in the latter part of 2020 and especially early part of 2021, a few of the material markets within the construction industry started really feeling the effects of the market conditions. So at that point, you can kind of start seeing that gradual increase over the 3%. What happened as you look into the second quarter of 2021, the market conditions were impacted globally throughout the construction industry. So that's where you see that steep incline and a dramatic increase in the really unprecedented cost increases there. I'd like to point out a few other things. I know it's probably hard to see on this graph. There are a few bullet points. Starting from the left to the right, the black bullet point represents the time frame where the design team of the district finalized some of the budgets for the Prop S bond issue. Moving forward several months, you'll see a few colorful bullet points that represent the early bid packages that we had for the earthwork and utilities, the building concrete, the precast concrete panels, and structural steel. And then finally, what we're here to present to you today is the final bid package on the far right. Before I move to the next slide, is really want to kind of show or demonstrate that those bullet points in time, really with the CML risk process that we went down and we were able to do the rolling GMP or the phase design delivery, we're able to do two things. We're able to secure those materials at a time where they're lower on the cost escalation curve, as well as what we're seeing even since this past summer is some of those materials that we procured back then is the lead times are even extending even further. So besides locking in that pricing at a lower cost point, we're actually locking in the pricing to make sure we're avoiding any material or costly material delays to the actual overall construction schedule. That being said, I'm going to turn it over to Matt to talk a little bit more about some of those early bid packages.
Thanks, Jack. So, as was mentioned, the CMAR process has quite a few benefits. One of those benefits specifically is the structural steel. As Amy mentioned earlier, during the traditional process of construction, the steel will be bid out with the rest of the bid packages at the completion of design, which will be December this year. If we had gone that route, steel would be bid out in December, we'd procure it, detail it, fabricate it, ship it to the site. We'd expect to see it on the site at the end of 2022 at best. Through the CMAR process, we purchased the steel last summer, which right now we're expecting to have steel on site in March, which we'll be erecting at that point. So savings of a number of months to the schedule on the project, so a big win for the school there. Steel wasn't the only place that there were savings. Bid packages 1 through 4, as Jack just mentioned, we were able to save quite a few dollars there and schedule time along the way. So overall, the savings really is in the millions at this point for the school. So a great win for the CMAR process.
So I'd like to talk about what all this means we talked about today and what this means for the numbers. As you recall, I talked a brief minute ago about the rolling GMP concept, where we started with the early bid packages, and now we're here to talk about the final bid package number 5. When you tally up the early package GMPs 1 through 4, it's roughly $38 million. The final bid package number 5, as you guys are all aware, is the completion of the building design. It is the stadium and it's the balance of the site work. We put that out to bid at the completion of design, and we took bids at late October. The time that we received the bids and compiled those with the overall cost of bid packages 1 through 4, it looked like the numbers were right around $165 million. The weeks that followed us taking those bids, we had a dedicated team of 12 people working around the clock through our subcontractor evaluation process. You know, with this large building program, this takes a lot of effort. We went through every nook and cranny of the project. Our team spent hours and hours interviewing the subs, going through material escalation, going through extended lead times, really just evaluating the overall process. Going through this process, the number began to rise. And it began to rise to a level that we knew that it would be a huge challenge for the district. So it was back to the drawing board. So we got together as a team. We worked with the design team, the district, and our contractors. And we came up with a plan in order to get the number closer to $165 million. Through that process, we knew we couldn't get quite there. So SM Wilson further evaluated, we knew that we had to further evaluate our own internal costs. So we took a hard look at our own risk, our own efficiencies in the project, and our escalation and our general conditions. And we're able to reduce our cost by $3 million in order to present a GMP at less than $165 million that would hopefully work for the district. So we're here today to present a final GMP that would get to an overall total project cost of $164,723,000. With that being said, as we've seen through history in this project and just what's going on in the current market conditions, time is really of the essence. And moving to the next slide, I talked a little bit about the trending or following the national publications and all the stuff we're doing with our peers and contractors evaluate costs. What we're really seeing through all that effort is the market conditions are going to continuing to escalate through 2022 and into 2023. Also, with that data is inflation, where the prices are, the market's telling the prices are never going to get to that pre-2021 level. With that being said, we can move on to the next slide. So we want to talk about some market protections. As we kind of talked about today, Matt and I have walked through some of the benefits of the CMAR process and some of the protections we put in place so far for the district are the award, the early award, and the accomplishments of bid packages 1 through 4. This is really, as a reminder, we secured that pricing on the lower end of that market escalation, as well as secure those materials to avoid those costly delays. The same thing we stand here before you in bid package 5. We're able to, we've negotiated with our contractors and we've been able to lock in our pricing and our future protection for the district, and we're protecting against future escalation. So we'll be able to lock in, and at the same token, we're going to lock in our material purchase as well to make sure there's no delays overall to the project. Going through that, I'm going to turn it over to Matt. There are a few steps that we're still working forward to help help the district, and Matt's going to walk through a few of those things.
So as mentioned, we've been involved in trying to save money along the way, looking at cost savings that help the number get in line with what the district requirements are. So those processes aren't stopping. We had a number of successes. We're working with the design team and Francis Howe through a value engineering effort to try to find additional savings along the way. This process is very purposeful. We want to be sure that we maintain the program that's set in place, the aesthetic of the building, the functionality, and the reliability of those systems afterwards. We do think that there is some potential savings that we can realize, and we're working through those processes. Meanwhile, we're doing so in a manner that doesn't cause for a significant redesign and also doesn't slow down the construction process. These are all very important items that we're keeping in mind. Through the value engineering effort, we want to make sure that the district has the best value and has a building that they can be proud of for decades to come.
Thank you, Matt. And thank you all for your time this evening. It's been a great experience, as Amy alluded to so far, and we very much look forward to working with the district, Mr. Butler, and the design team, and partnering with and providing solutions for the district and the Francis Howe North community. So thank you.
Jack and Matt, Amy, thank you very much for your presentation. I do think I just want to reiterate a couple things as we go into this. We have been working with SM Wilson since pretty much the early design of the high school building to look for ways to increase efficiencies. And I know that at one point we had a conversation about one of the retaining walls and how we might be able to value engineer that. Turns out that we had a good solution in place. We didn't really venture far from that. But it's an example of the types of conversations that took place throughout the design process in order to incorporate value throughout the completion of the drawings. So when we brought our 95% drawings to market, we felt very comfortable that we had already done a great job of looking for ways to make the project as efficient as possible. So I want to thank SM Wilson and Honer for their work on that. I think that was really important. The other thing is that it was a little bit, it's a little bit hard to talk about it because we're looking at, times that are as much as, 2 years in the future. But we went over the schedule in detail with SM Wilson after we had a chance to review all the bids. And there are some pieces of the project where we do have an opportunity to lower the cost because we can rebid or bid those items out closer to the time of construction. Now, those are not the major components of the building, so we're not talking about dramatic shifts in the cost, but we are continuing to look for ways to achieve value within the project by taking advantage of what we think will be a lower volatility in the marketplace for certain components. You know, some of the fencing around the stadium would be an example of a product that we certainly don't have any need to secure that right away, the way that we do with some of the structural and plate steel, but we can take a look at that in the future and hopefully see some of this volatility come out of the market so that we can reduce the price on that, which just lends a little more confidence towards being able to work within that guaranteed maximum price and be able to complete the building. Jack and Matt talked about the value engineering, and one of the things that the design team gave our architects and SM Wilson as a charge was we would be willing to consider those value engineering principles as long as they didn't weaken the building. We didn't want to have a lower quality building just to reduce the price. We have a design standard. We want our buildings to be, we want the new Francis Howell North to be constructed in a manner that's as close as we can to Francis Howell High School, because our intention is for that building to last, 50 or 60 years. And so we want to make sure that we make some good decisions at the outset. So as we talk about value engineering, we really are finding ways to be more efficient, but maintain a high quality throughout the project so that the community will be proud of the finished product when we do our ribbon cutting and welcome students and staff into that new building. So Mrs. Lang, we'll be happy to answer some questions.
Okay, thank you. Before we get to any questions we may have tonight, I want to make it known that December 7th at 6:30, we'll be having another workshop on this where that will give everyone time to digest this information, send in any kind of questions, concerns, thoughts. And we typically do not have patron comments at our special work sessions, but we will be allowing 30 minutes of patron comments related to this matter on December 7th at 6:30 p.m. No action will be taken on this until December 16th business meeting. So, saying that, questions?
I want to see some of the actual bids. I just am struggling with the pricing going up. I don't know the exact percentage, but it's almost double what we started with. And for me, that's just completely unacceptable. So I'm not sure how we got there, because all of the research I'm doing, even if construction costs went up 40%, that's nowhere near where we're talking now. So I actually, myself, I'm going to need more information, because these slides just don't provide me with enough information where I'm comfortable as to what's going on.
Pardon me. I think I'm just going to reiterate what Michelle said. So everything she said, I echo. There just seems to be a large gap, so I'd like to get a little bit more detail on what that is, what the different bid packages are. If there's a bid package that is extraordinarily high, that 400% compared to what we're talking about, an average of 30% gets us more to the 120s than 165. So if we could get more of a clear picture of why that is, I think that will be beneficial. And my assumption is maybe there's some after marketing projections that they're factoring in, but like a little bit more detailed explanation on that. And then also along the lines of what we thought that the original package was going to be, or the original numbers, I should say, what that margin of profit was compared to it now. Because if we're talking about a percent profit and then now we're ballooning that total package almost 200%, then is the profit doubling? And if so, what justifies that? And is there any benefits of delaying? I'd like to work those into some options to see what that could look like for us. I know there's no crystal ball to tell us where we're going to be in the marketplace 6 months, a year, 2 years from now, but I think conventional wisdom tells us it's not going to ever get back before the 2021 market, but it also isn't going to stay as high as it is right now.
On the CMAR thing, there's the open book cost tracking. Could somebody explain what that means? I think that might add some clarity to some of the questions.
Yeah, that's a good question. Thanks, Mike. So when a CMAR contract is issued, what it basically means is, in essence, is that the project is open book. We as the owner see all the bids. We see who bid the project. We see what the margins are. We see what the contingencies are. We see what the allowances are. So anything they spend, we see, and anything that goes underneath those amounts of money, the district then gets back. So that's what we call a guaranteed maximum price. So in essence, the price can't go up, but the price can go down. So if the job gets a bit done a little bit faster, if they're potentially, there's a lot of things the contractors put in the project. I'll talk about cleanup. So cleaning up the job site on a monthly basis. If we can get the project done a little quicker, so right now they may have estimated 2.5 years of cleanup. Well, if they get the project done in 2 years, then there's 6 months of savings on the cleanup. SM Wilson doesn't keep that money. That money goes directly back to the district. So we see all of their costs. Everything's open book. They present that information to the district as a record, and then, but they can't go up. So if a 2.5 year project goes to 3 years, the cap is still where it is. That's the essence of a GMP contract. So, what Mr. Haynes really alluding to is that, everything is open book. So these, to Mrs. Walker's question about the bids, we have all those bids. Everything's open. Everything's publicly bid. There's no secrets. There's nothing behind the curtain on this. So, but we know that this is capped, which is why you're getting this number. So the number can only go down. It cannot go up from here as long as no one changes the scope of the project. So we have to make sure we're clear on that. You can't add 100,000 square feet to the job and then tell them that they still need to do it for the same price. So, did that answer the question? Okay, thank you.
Would it be possible on the 7th to bring any, are there any other districts in the same situation, or are there any other projects kind of comparable?
Mrs. Lang, I've asked our architects to begin working on that. And I said it's interesting and instructional for SM Wilson to provide us with some information based on average construction costs as reported by a national index. But it would also be helpful for us to take a look at current projects similar in size and scope to what we're doing, that were in the market at about the same time, and what the impact on their projects have been. So Honer is beginning to do some research on that for us, and we'll have some information to share with the board and the community on the 7th.
And will they be there on the 7th?
Yes. Yes, I've invited Mr. Ruther and Mr. Welch to be joining us on the 7th. Tonight I wanted to focus on SM Wilson since they were presenting the GMP. But we knew that we would have a more in-depth discussion on the 7th, and so our architects would be here then.
And is it possible also, I'd like the discussion on the 7th to also include what's going to happen to all of the other projects if this, we're talking an extra $65, $75 million.
I have another question. Winslow School District, they just did a ribbon cutting on their high school. I don't know. How does the size compare to where we're at? Because they just completed that a couple months ago, and it was a $75 million building, was my understanding.
It is similar. I would ask if you can wait till Honer's here. Honer designed that building, so I think they would be the absolute experts on to answer that question. It's similar. It's a new high school. It's a new middle school, but type of construction, stuff like that, I would defer to them on that.
And we can certainly provide, and we certainly will provide the information. I think instructed those to remember that from ribbon cutting to
Yes.
from groundbreaking to ribbon cutting, there's probably 3 years, and there's probably a year of design and bid before that. So
Yes.
the prices were locked in, 3 years ago. So it's difficult to take a look at a building that's completed and just opened and then compare it to our construction, because we're just entering the market and they entered the market 3 years ago.
And I can appreciate that, but I don't know of anything that's actually doubled in cost over the last 3 years. I mean, that's what we're talking about, is double what. So if there's design things that were done in that building, maybe that's what we need to be looking at, is changing how we're doing this.
Sure.
Because, I mean, we can't afford,
We did have an opportunity to tour North Point with Honer Associates. Wentzville School District was very welcoming and accommodating. So our team did have a chance to tour that building so that we could see what the state of the art was, so to speak, and if it was at a point in time that there would be an opportunity to incorporate some of those efficiencies into the building. The good news is that it's the same architect, so even if we didn't tour the building, Honer had knowledge of what they had done on that building, and they knew what our design standard was for Francis Howell High School. They just completed that building for the Wentzville School District, and we were able to take advantage of any of those efficiencies or so forth. So, but it's a very nice building. It's a very nice building.
Board, any other questions, comments? Anyone else have anything else to add?
I'll just echo what was already mentioned, but if between now and then, and this goes for the community as well, if there's any questions, a lot of these would take us a little time maybe to research or prepare something for, which is why we're not, trying to answer all of these tonight. But if there's from the board sending in to us, or even from the community, we can work on getting those answers between now and the 7th as well.
Okay, well, thank you all for coming. And that will end our work session. So everyone has a great Thanksgiving.